Welcome to this month's Learning with Loden. I believe you're going to enjoy the recap of our meeting. But this month's Learning with Loden featured our board members. And this is the first for us, but we had a round table with our community members and our board. And our board members just shared what does a board member do. I feel like most people know that our board members qualify to run for office. They're elected and they meet once a month. But on the average, a board member is going to spend about 15 hours per month working on activities with the district, sometimes even more. And in this video, they just will be recapping the things that the board members do. So I hope you enjoy this month's video and have a great holiday season.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Learning with Loden. I'm pleased to welcome our board president, Josh Roberts. So Josh, thanks for coming here today, and just kind of give us an idea of what does a school board do? I mean, that's kind of it's an unknown topic for a lot of people. So, because you guys are paid, right?
No, we're not paid. Actually, we get zero. That's why when they say we're going to double your pay next year, it equates to actually having no more money,
yes.
Which is fine. No, this was a good opportunity to get together and visit with the community about what school board members do and what school board members don't do, and answer some questions. And we really started off the meeting by everybody introduced themselves, and then I kind of gave an overview of what new board members can expect when they come in, because it's really a different animal than any other type of board service. I know that I've served on several boards over the years, and when I was first elected back a decade ago, I thought, I've got a pretty good handle on what school board service would entail. And I found out that I was really wrong about that.
So what's the biggest difference between people that have been maybe on a nonprofit board or some other board and a school board? What would you say is that number one difference?
There are so many rules that govern basically what a school board is. You have multiple sources of income. You've got multiple sources of rules. You've got federal laws. You've got state laws. You actually have to consider city ordinances and those types of things when we're conducting various activities.
And some of our property lies both in the city and the county, so that can also be kind of
interesting.
Absolutely.
Our school district is actually the boundaries go into Stone County as well as Greene County. So we have all these different dynamics that come into play, and it is just there are requirements when you're basically advocating and administering a school district that are different from other types of organizations. There's all these rules, and you know about finance rules. There's different funds, and you can't commingle funds, and you have to do everything by the book, and you're absolutely required to do that. We're accountable for every single penny that we spend, and it's public record, so people can go through it and look at it to hold us accountable, and they should be able to do that.
So I guess if we're just kind of doing kind of an explanation, what overall does the school board do? What would be a good summary of what is the job of the school board?
Well, one of the, I think Jason Massengale did summarize that, and one of the main things is we set the district goals. We evaluate where we're at and where we would like to be, set those goals. We develop the board policies and the procedures to help us achieve those goals and to govern the school. Obviously, one of the huge things that we do is we hire the superintendent, and the board likes to say that we have one employee, and it's Dr. Loden in this case, the superintendent. And so we try to run everything through him and then let Dr. Loden lead the district. I know last year we sent out 1,664 W-2s, I think it was. And so we've got a lot of employees. Just a couple. It's not possible for the board in a part-time capacity as we serve to basically administer the district. So we empower our superintendent to delegate that authority throughout the district. And so that's one of the big things that we do. We also approve the budget for the school year. That's usually an all-day long process where
it's 2 days. You do like 2 meetings for that. Correct?
We do, yeah. It does span over 2 different meetings, and we have people come in and provide us with tons of information. We look at teacher pay is a huge part of what we do. 84% of our budget is people, and so we look at that issue and we compare. We're going to study what every other school district in Southwest Missouri is doing, the districts in the COC, and we always look at Springfield because you have to stay competitive. If you are off, you're $2,000 or $3,000 behind for a new teacher, they're going to go somewhere else because that's very important. Pay is a big deal, especially when you're dealing with teacher pay, and we all know they're underpaid anyway. So every dollar matters when it comes to teacher pay. So that's an important thing that we do. We also like to get out and advocate for the district. We do that locally at board meetings and dealing with city leaders. county leaders. We meet with the county commissioners and other leaders. I also go up to Jeff City every year and I meet with our legislators up there. And I've been to Washington, D.C. and sat down with our federal representatives and senators in D.C. and we just advocate for the district. And that's one of the primary things that we do. And the last thing, not the last thing, but one of the other things that we do is to monitor performance, right? We delegate authority and then we have to have accountability. And so we monitor the performance of the district, and that can be academic performance, and it can also be attendance and all the different types of things, financial performances. And so we do all those types of things to make sure that the district is healthy.
Well, and so really, the board itself sets those policies. They kind of set the boundaries of how we're going to operate within the law. They set the budget of how we're going to operate and how you're going to allocate funding. And then you, like you said, you pass that on to the superintendent to kind of carry out your wishes as your one employee. Would that be a kind of a good, like, kind of basic summary of what you do?
I think it's a good way to summarize it because as board members, I'm a lawyer, we have an accountant, we have people that do different things, but we're not educators. And so my opinion is that we let the people who are trained in education run the school district. We set the parameters, we want you to do these types of things and achieve these goals. But as far as getting into a classroom and teaching a kid or dealing with discipline or the day-to-day operations of the business, we actually need to stay out of that and let the people who are trained educators educate our students.
So you said that that's one thing that the board doesn't do is they don't get into the day-to-day operations in the buildings. You hire people to do that. What are some other, I guess, misconceptions or things that people may think that the board does that you don't do, or overall, what don't you do in the governance of the school district?
Well, that's good. We try to stay out of the weeds, and that's one of the things, the day-to-day type of thing. That's what we call it, right? Yeah. Where somebody will call me, and it happens all the time. They say, well, I've got an issue with this teacher. And one that comes to mind was, well, they're not giving me enough time at the parent-teacher conference. I need additional time to talk to the teacher about issues involving my student. And that's a very real concern. However, you want to, not as a board member, get involved in that. You want to redirect and say, well, have you talked to the teacher about that? And in that case, they hadn't. And so, well, why don't you start with the teacher and then redirect within it, the chain of command. And if you don't get a resolution with that teacher, you could move up to the building principal, and same thing. If that doesn't work to your satisfaction, there's a director of elementary or secondary education, and then ultimately the superintendent. And if you still don't have satisfaction over your issue, then it can come to the board. But we don't usually inject ourselves at the lower level because we don't know. The best person to solve that problem is the person that's there dealing with the issue on a day-to-day basis. Because I could say, hey, do this or that, but I'm not intimately involved in the situation. I don't really even know about the personalities or the situation at all. So it's best to defer that within the chain of command and stay out of the weeds.
Well, and with that too, the school board is essentially 7 people that your voice is 7 votes. And so a lot of times a decision, it can't be made by a school board person. It has to be made if it comes to the board, it has to be a vote. And so that's what speaks for the voice. You as an individual member you're limited on what you can do.
That's exactly right. An individual board member has 0 power to do anything at all. We have to act as a group. We have to have a quorum of individuals, which is at least 4, and then from there we have to decide by majority. So that's one of the good things about having a board is that no one person is going to be able to go in and assert some sort of a political agenda or some, they have some vengeance towards, you see it in districts where they have somebody's mad at a coach, so I'm going to run for school board for that. Well, having a board protects against an individual person who has a specific agenda because it has to be, you're going to have to get a majority of people to agree with you. And if what you're wanting to do is not for the best interest of the district, then you're going to have trouble doing that, and rightfully so.
So you referenced it earlier, but really how does the board itself oversee the finances of the school district? Because I think that's a lot of people have those questions, but what would be a good kind of summary of how you oversee that? Because it's not just, you said twice a year when we look at the budget, but every single meeting you're approving expenses and everything else, correct?
Yeah, every single check that's written is approved by the board, and we have financial summaries because the actual expenditures we spend $4 million on salaries and another $2 million on bills every single month.
Yeah,
so we don't go through it line by line, but there are summaries that are prepared by our CFO, Brenda Rantz, who allows us to go through and kind of analyze where we are and to look at the health of the district. When it comes to setting the budget There are lots of different factors that go into that. We analyze teacher pay, that's a big part of it, but we also have to consider the various issues with the various buildings. We may need a roof over here, or we may need something done
General
here.
maintenance. Some of our buildings,
maintenance.
what are like 15, 20 years old.
Yeah,
so
and it's very expensive. The high school is getting older, and we need to know about those concerns. And in reality, we only have so much money, so you have to prioritize, okay, this building needs this, but it can wait. And so we take input from all the different areas, including Sodexo, and that they're like, well, this, you probably have another couple of years on this roof, but this over here needs immediate attention. This school doesn't have air conditioning or whatever. We've never come to that, but we have units that are near failing or failing, and so we have to prioritize.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen you guys as a board have to make difficult decisions just because we see this large amount of money that comes in, but we're also limited on how we can spend it because there's certain, speaking of federal and state and all those, there's rules you can't just spend everything the way you want to, correct?
That's absolutely right, and that's you got to pay your teachers. Yeah. And the different funds are set up to, you can only use certain resources for certain types of things. We do have a little bit of discretionary spending, and it's been said, we could do anything we want to do, but we can't do everything we want to do. And that's not entirely true. We can't do anything we want to do, but we do have a little bit of flexibility. But the lion's share of what we do is educate kids, and we have to pay those educators. We have I would say close to 1,000 people, maybe not that high, with college degrees, and some with advanced degrees, and they want to be paid and they deserve to be paid. And so a lot of that's dictated, it's kind of fixed. A huge chunk of that budget we'll go through and we analyze our financial health and whether we can give raises. Fortunately, we have been able to do that in the last 10 years when I've been on the board, but that hasn't always been the case. There have been years where they had to freeze teacher pay pay increases because of budgetary issues, and that's kind of out of our hands.
So really, I guess as a high-level overview, you as a board, you kind of set the parameters, you make sure you kind of set the guidelines of how things are going to be spent, and then you trust the people that you've hired to implement that. But on the another side, you are representative of the community, and so you guys have talked about this, that you're always open and available to hear from the community. So what's the best way that people can reach out to you individually as a board member or as board members as the board as a whole?
Yeah, I would say it's really a good idea. You can email, that's the best, because we can get an email at any point in time. You can pick up the phone and call any board member, but we all have jobs. We're all working. This is not our full-time job, so it can be difficult to get a hold of us. And it sometimes takes a little while to get back on answers, because a lot of times I'll get a good question, but I don't know the answer offhand, or I want to make sure. And sometimes I call you.
You call me, yeah.
Sometimes I call Dr. Loden, and I want to get the information to make sure that it's accurate. But we're always open to discuss things. And if it's on an agenda item, you can come to a board meeting and you can speak to an agenda item. Sometimes they're like, we should be able to talk about whatever we want, which I appreciate people saying that, but in reality, if people showed up at our board meetings and they talked about whatever they wanted, it would go on for hours and hours and hours. So we limit that to agenda items. But outside of the formal board meetings, reach out to any one of us. We'll be glad to listen and give you whatever feedback you have as to the issue that you might be addressing.
Well, and I know we keep trying to be open and available for feedback. So I know the board's looking at additional ways to get out in the community and reach out for stuff. But if you're ever interested in kind of knowing more about what a school board does, we kind of have that outlined on our website. And you can also just stay up to date on any future board meetings. They're always posted at least 24 hours in advance, unless there's an absolute emergency situation, kind of thing. But you can stay up to date on all of those things at nixapublicsschools.net/schoolboard. And you can see links to upcoming agenda items. You can see the school board members, their contact information, and just a whole lot more stuff just about how the school board governs the district. So we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Josh, thanks for being here and kind of giving us an overview of what goes on with the Board of Education. And reach out if you have any more questions, and look for opportunities where you can engage with our Board of Education on all the different matters involving Nixa Public Schools. And tune in next time for another edition of Learning with Loden.